is being filmed, and by being present, attendees are deemed to have agreed to be filmed and to the use of those images and sound recordings. I can advise that attendees should not disclose any personal information of individuals, as they would infringe the data protection rights of that individual. May I please ask everyone to mute their microphones when not speaking. I think the first thing we've got to do is apologies for absence. And I've got apologies from Councillor Barrett, Councillor Knight, Councillor North and Councillor Strawn. Sorry, I've left my agenda. Can I spot yours for a second? That's just down. Thank you. Yeah, I just left them by. Thank you. Can I just check if there are any declarations of interest at all? No. Okay. Item number 3, Chairman's announcements. I don't have anything specific to say at the moment, other than it's not on the agenda this evening, but I know planning is taking place for the victory event we're holding on the 5th of July, and work is in progress on that. We've got a number of different acts and entertainers coming along, and different stalls and so on. But I guess we'll update council in due course on that one. But mark that in your diaries. 5th of July. It's in the afternoon. It's Saturday. It'll be a combined sort of 80th year anniversary at the end of the Second World War. Okay. Item number 4, public open session. Do we have anybody in person that wants to speak? Do you want to speak, Harjit? Yeah, okay, good. If you could just give us your name, please, for the minutes. Thank you.
Is there a microphone on? Oh,
so I'm Harjit, the Postmaster for Bonsland Post Office. Just really wanted to catch up in regards to the recent application for the banking hub in Biggleswade. There's a really sort of understanding at the moment that the application at the moment has been sort of declined. Main reasons, as I interpret and understand, is because the Lloyds Bank is still open, and that there are a number of ATMs available in the area for access to cash at the present time. I think that, of course, come November, when the Lloyds Bank branch does close, and potentially taking with it 1, maybe 2 ATMs, that there could be an opportunity to reconsider the application. I think from my perspective at the moment, it's and myself and my wife really, it's just to continue pushing this with cash access. I think it's a really important project.
Thank you, Harjit, and thank you for coming along this evening and sharing your thoughts with us. As you pointed out, we've got it down at 9A, so we'll obviously have a discussion on that a bit later on. But I think I can speak on behalf of the council. We want to keep the dialogue open with yourselves and also with the other post office in town as well. As as the bank closures progress, if you can see what I mean. But as this kind of things change. So thanks for coming along, and obviously we'll keep in touch, and we'll have a discussion when we get to 9A. So thank you. Is anyone online at all, or no other public session? Thank you. Great. We're at number 5. We don't have an invited speaker. So number 6, members' questions at all, if there is any. Nope. Okay. So number 7, we got the minutes and recommendations of the 18th of February meeting. So we will go through them now. So yeah, starting at page 7. Page 7. Yeah, sorry, Councillor Foster.
So I'm laughing to myself. Being very, very picky here. Could the full stop be put after councillor and councillor North? There's an alignment issue, and it pains me slightly.
I've just spotted that. Thank you. Under the present, I think, Asia. Yeah, thank you. Okay, page 8. Page 9. Page 10. Page 11. Sorry, yep.
Will now be taking place.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, thank you for that, Mr. Campbell. It's yeah, I think since this meeting, I think it had been a date had been agreed. Councillor Patel, can you remind us what the date is of the Carnival Parade, so just so we can get that in the minutes? Okay, thank you. All right. Okay, page 12. Okay, great. Okay, right. Okay, matters arising then. Page 7. Nope. Page 8. Yeah, Councillor Skilton. Yep.
I should have done this in accuracy, actually. Apologies.
Okay.
So Anna Franklin, their pronoun is they, and in the second paragraph, there's a she, and that can I request that's changed to they, and I have checked with Anna that that's okay.
Okay, we'll take your word for that, Councillor Skilton. Yep. Okay, we can do that. Okay. Page 9. No. Page 10. Page 11. Page 12. Okay. Take that as a full record of the meeting. Okay. Move it. Yeah. Okay. Great. Thank you. Right. Okay. So 9A, answers consideration, banking provision update. Over to the town clerk.
Thank you. So I've handed out 2 additional points of reference for members to consider. One is the process from cash access, which is this document here, which I'm holding up. Please take away and read at your leisure. And secondly, what wasn't available before, but I insisted on getting access to, this should have been on Cash Access's website, and they just didn't put it off. This is the actual assessment that took place. Yeah. What's interesting when you read their assessment, going back to your questions, is actually the assessment excludes Lloyd's as a resource. So it's net of Lloyd's as a resource, which is interesting. So this is the first time we've seen this. If we go back to the outcome that we had when we referred this, they made 2 observations to us. Number 1 was they were surprised that we'd gone back so quickly after our initial assessment. And this was rather unusual. Secondly, they were very prescriptive about why they had said no. And they specifically said no. There are already cash services in the area within 1 mile in an urban location and 3 miles in a rural location, which are suitable for the needs of consumers and small businesses. I pushed the matter with them because you do sense that there's a strong feeling within the town and those people who access banking services that there needs to be better provision. And I pushed the subject actually of whether, would it help matters at all if we were to gather together a petition, a strong sense from the community that this needed to happen. And I got a very straightforward response, which was no, it has no bearing on it whatsoever. A petition would make no difference. They reiterated that they were the body that actually determined this. So if anybody wants to go down here and get some form of banking provision, this is the only route that we can go down. And obviously they're regulated by the Financial Standards Authority. And I think that's as far as we go for now. What we can do, of course, is when Lloyd's does close, we can submit another application. But what surprises me is now that I've seen their assessment, they don't include Lloyd's as a resource. It's net of that. So I don't see any reason why we can't carry on and submit another request. But on face value, based on their criteria, it doesn't look positive so far. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter, for that update. Anybody got any questions or comments on this at all? Councillor Foster.
I think the clerk has summed it up really. I mean, we could talk about it, and I take on board all the comments from Ardy there, but there's no real benefit for us taking any further action at this stage. I think we should indeed review it when we get closer to the time with Lloyd's closing. But I don't think there's any value in it and taking it any further. We've got it on our agenda. Let's note it, and I think for this particular meeting, at least move on.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? No. Okay. I mean, I think that's right, Councillor Foster. I think you kind of summed it up. I mean, my only two comments were before we move on was obviously I've asked for it to be on an ongoing agenda item on TCM anyway as a standing item, so we can monitor it if anything gets worse or the other issues emerge. And clearly we know that Lloyd's is going in November, so we ought to really look towards the end of the year, I guess, to prepare another application. But that's yeah, go on.
Could I just add just for 1 second that obviously what they made it clear to me as well is they don't require individual towns to notify them when banks close. So it's part of their natural process to reach out as soon as that happens, and they're aware of that, and conduct assessments. The other thing they made it clear of, which kind of made me feel a bit better, is that they did get one of their community assistant manager to come down here in situ to walk around the town to do the assessments of distances in person. So it wasn't something that they did remotely. So that makes me feel a bit better about taking us seriously. Thank you.
No, okay. I mean, that's very interesting, actually. I mean, just an observation, of course, is that they look at the banks and ATMs with straight line distances, which is possibly not how people access banking facilities, but that's more about their criteria than anything else. So, Councillor Albon, before we wrap up.
I've been looking for, I'm not sure it's here or not, but it looks like they've only considered Biggleswade and not the rural hinterland. Is that correct? And if it is there anything that we can do, like looking at it from the rural hinterland's point of view?
Yeah. I'm happy to take that up with them and see if we can persuade them to look at things in a more wider context. We'll see what response I get.
I think that's right. I mean, it's something possibly we consider as part of the. I'm assuming we council will want to resubmit an application post November when Lloyd's closes. That could be something that maybe speaking to neighbouring parish councils and villages. There could be a head of steam around that. It's not just about the town. It's about as Councillor Albon says, the rural hinterland, for want of a better phrase. So.
The only thing I would say, and I hope obviously there's a positive outcome to this, is when you have a conversation with them, they're very black and white in their interpretation of things. Their criteria is their criteria. And as we know, they're assessed by FSA. They don't seem very flexible in recognizing other voices.
Okay, thank you. I mean, there's no, I don't think there's any sort of, sorry, Councillor Thomas.
Yeah, it might be worth putting this on our website if you haven't already done that, because from what I can see, that our nearest bank is Barclays in Bedford, which is ridiculous. I know it doesn't take, it says it takes 35 minutes to get there. It's absolutely crazy.
it on our website.
Yeah. And we need to keep pushing, especially when we get towards November, because a common sense approach would be to have a sensible changeover. We're not going to have that, are we? We're going to have a gap in between.
Okay, I think we've covered this now. We don't need to make a necessarily a decision on this. And as I say, we've got it as a standing item on TCM. So let's just keep it on there. We've heard what town clerk's got to say, and then we can look at it in a matter of months' time. I think, knowing full well, of course, Lloyd's is going in November. So okay, let's move on. 9B then, business forum event.
Thank you. Yes, the second business forum event is going to take place on Friday, 25th of July in the morning. It's taken a little while to arrange this, largely determined by the availability of the MP and also then having to fit it in with a suitable venue. Orchard Centre has been chosen again because of its availability, and it might seem some way off, but that was the first Friday that Richard was available. It will give us an advantage of getting the Biggleswade business community together successfully as we did last time, also involving councillors, officers of Central Beds Council and ourselves, enterprise agencies and academic institutions, vocational trainers and such like. Pertinent to the recent discussion, it'd be interesting to try and get somebody there from a financial institution. I think that's probably down to Nationwide or the post office in the current circumstances. Town Council will lead the event with the support of the CBC business team and other organisations. There'll be more of an update. We've only just got confirmation of the availability of the MP, and therefore being able to set the actual date firmly. I think that was towards the end of last week, so we couldn't actually go out and invite speakers and such like until that had been nailed down. So that's where we are at the moment. We're progressing the planning of the event. We've spoken to CBC colleagues today. Well, it's not a provisional date anymore, it's a solid date, and we're talking with our partners. We can now move on to issue invitations to invitees and to get our speakers list, at least make the approaches.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Campbell. Any questions or comments on this? Okay, Peter.
All I wanted to reiterate was I thought that it was a very good occasion last time, but I think we could still improve it. And one of the ways that we can improve it is to bring bigger players to the event. And we'll be making a special effort to reach out to the likes of the Co-op and other big businesses that are in the circumference of the town and see if they're prepared to contribute towards the day, because I think that will make it even more powerful.
Councillor Foster.
Yeah, unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend the last one because for various reasons. But yeah, by all accounts, it was a very well received event, and very, very pleased to see this actually going to be happening again. I like sort of the content, like sort of the objectives. I think, Ian, it's fair to say, I think from feedback that there's some lessons to be learned about how the agenda works and how the groups work. And I think I'm sure you've taken that feedback on board, which is great. So yeah, pleased that we've got it planned. And I am going to do a very minor point. And Councillor, the Chairman, you might understand why. And you've said it's already happening. I thought the committee is here to, one of the recommendation is that we know the report and agree to enable. It sounds as though that's already happened. So that are we rubber stamping of the decision to put it forward? It's a minor point. I'm supporting it. It's just the fact that it's in here that we're agreeing to it, but it's already, you already said it's happening.
Apologies for putting the cart before the horse, but I should have expressed it in terms of that is the first available date for the MP and the venue.
You're quite right, Councillor Foster, to point out the provisional element within the question. I hadn't quite got to that point yet, but I think Mr. Campbell's given you the answer. But yeah, you're quite right. I suspect events have probably superseded things, but so I think it's fair to say it probably isn't the provisional date as we've just been described. I think if I can slightly reword the recommendation that we're wanting, sort of, yeah, it's progressive and based on obviously the information we've just had. So I think if we can take a quick vote on that, that'd be helpful. So all those in favour of as it's described, take it forward. Thank you. Unanimous. Great. Thank you. There you are. You've got, please continue. Okay, next item is a little bit of a longer one, but it's been asked to be put on the agenda. Big Eats trader selection process, and I think the town clerk's going to cover this one first of all. Thank you.
So actually, I'd like to reverse that if that's okay. Perhaps Ian can just introduce the paper for a few moments, and then we have some questions that have been. Oh, sorry, go for Big Eats, yeah. Big Eats, go for it then. Yeah, it's not Big Eats, we've got questions at UKSPF.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah. Pardon?
It's Big Eats next.
Sorry, it is the Big Eats. It's C. 9C. Yeah, it's Councillor Patel's motion. So sorry, I wanted the officer's comment relating to the UKSPF. Sorry, it was the wrong way around. So if Councillor Patel can, if you want to read out your motion again, that would be helpful, or we can take it as read.
Yeah, take it as read.
But if you want to say anything, that's helpful.
It's just in relation to obviously Big Eats, they're doing a fantastic job. It's not criticising them or anything. It's getting bigger and bigger and more popular. It's just that we did come across one particular trader who has raised his grievances, and it has been discussed. So it was just going forward to see, well, as the motion says, to see if the organisers can publish their selection criteria or work with the local businesses who want to take part, who haven't just made the cut. I understand that the standards are high, which is fair enough because it is a good event. But the feedback that I've got is that, there's not much feedback given to them to hit the criteria or what even the criteria is. Hence this motion today.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Patel. Do any of the officers want to add any comments on that? Yeah, Ian, please.
Yeah, thank you. Following the successful year one of the Big Eats, we've just signed off a year two agreement. The question of the selection criteria, that actually appears on the Big Eats website. It also tells you about hygiene ratings and how they're found. They are published and it's transparent. And the hygiene ratings for everybody with hygiene ratings appears on something quaintly called the schools on the doors. So if you Google that, you will find a page when you put in the name of the business and it will tell you what their star ratings are. The one you're particularly concerned about has very proudly announced it's got a 5-star rating in the last fortnight. As for criteria, it's largely based on trucks and trailers, things on wheels and being mobile. There is provision in there to have branded gazebos, but they're usually not for hot food and for sweets and such like. And there is a criticism based not just on the lack of a food van or trailer, but actually of the inadequacy of the catering equipment that they have previously operated with. So room for improvements, but I don't think any outright restriction. No one's saying no. I think we're just saying, no, they are saying, and it's their decision because we contract this out to our partners who are the experts in this area. And they are saying it's not a no, never. It's be more in line with the criteria and the image that they're trying to portray, and the fact that at some stage they would like to take this mobile. It might even go to other areas. But essentially, it's on wheels and it's the right sort of catering equipment to be mobile.
So, sorry, did you say
Councillor
that's,
Patel, so go
is
on.
that, sorry, it's actually published on the, like the criteria, and are they actually giving feedback to the people that don't make the cut? Because that's not what's, I don't think is happening, hence me raising it, as in like, look, this is the criteria, have a look at the website, you know, you haven't quite made the cut, perhaps you could do this.
Yeah, no, thank you, councillor. So essentially, as my colleague said, it is published essentially off the two links which they've provided, as Ian's just kind of listed in terms of transparency for criteria and for hygiene ratings for different traders. We can share that again with
The hygiene
colleagues.
rating.
Well, separately, the hygiene ratings of traders who Big Eats operate with are published on the site, that the link that you've said already. So that is transparently available in that sense. In terms of feedback though, I think I fully acknowledge, I don't think necessarily the Big Eats operator goes back to queries and says yes, no, maybe on those and gives them sufficient feedback. I think that's more for officers to do, which we're happy to do that. And as my colleague just alluded to earlier, in terms of this particular case with the equipment required to actually do the trading for the Big Eats, we're happy to go back and give that specific information to help essentially.
Is there an actual, set criteria? So they can click on the link and say, right, you need 5-star, you need this. That's what I'm trying to establish. Or I know they may have their hygiene ratings at the website, but is there, say if I want to trade, I can go there and read exactly this is what I need.
Go on. One at a time, please.
I'll just,
Can Karim go first,
I'll come
please?
back. So yes, there is, and there's also kind of a form that the inquirant, the applicant has to fill in with, various answers and information which they have to submit, and then that's gone through with the organizer. Like I say, in the case you mentioned, I'm not entirely sure that sufficient feedback has been provided yet, so we're happy to do so to help it for the next time around.
Thank you.
Okay, before I take any questions, so can I be clear then, so there is existing sort of published criteria, we're confident that is the case? Okay.
Yeah, excuse me,
Go on.
Food Standards Agency, which is a national body, and it's regulated through CBC, through Environmental Services.
Okay. Apart from the food hygiene, we're confident the criteria is published and available. Okay. Can that be circulated to members of this committee then, please, after this meeting? Okay, be great, because I don't think I've seen it fully as well, or may have seen it around, but it'd be great to have another copy of it. So great. Councillor Skilton, please.
Thank you. So obviously this sounds reasonably positive, and I think the stuff on here is the sort of thing we want to be doing and encouraging local businesses to be part of this. I just wonder what the nature of the agreement is with Big Eats, because I seem to remember when we started this process, we wanted to make it more in-house and have more control over it as a town council. And I think Ian just said that there is another year been agreed, and I don't remember seeing the wording of that agreement. And I just wondered if some of this can just be incorporated into that agreement rather than having to do motions, if we make it part of the agreement. Because at the end of the day, it's our market square. That's a public benefit that we're giving to people that are making a profit. And there may even need to be a procurement exercise to do that. Even there's no financial transactions, that is still a public benefit that we're giving to a profit-making organisation that might need to be considered as well.
I mean, well, I'm not so sure about the profit-making organisation in the sense that the way it's sort of constructed at the moment, it's more getting people together. There's no kind of separate company or anything like that. It's more a coordination of existing traders, I understand. But maybe if Ian, you want to sort of comment on that point, Councillor Skilton.
Yeah, I think there's some points on there. I mean, we've had meetings, meeting with Jonathan Sarju and people from, us two, people from Big Eats have met to discuss this prior to drawing up this year's contract. There has been a report put forward on Big Eats previously. So there shouldn't be any surprises. I mean, the agreement is there to be seen. And I don't think there's anything particularly contentious in that. It's very much a question of them running it because they are the experts in partnership with ourselves. We have some input to that. There are things which we've negotiated around. That's pretty much where we go at the moment.
Peter, Karim first and then Peter, please.
Thanks. Very briefly, just to add to what Ian said, I mean, officers have continually stressed though to our partner that we do draw, we're trying to draw more from local businesses to get the mix right between traders, both locally and others that may come from further afield. So that remains clearly a commitment we're continuing with, and we'll see how we go with it in terms of producing results on that.
Okay, Peter.
Okay. I'm trying to find the right words. I think, obviously, I'm not particularly close to the subject matter in the sense I don't see Big Eats on a regular basis. However, you sense that there might be an opportunity for clearer communication between Big Eats and anybody who expresses an interest in joining the activity, and that they then should clearly understand what criteria Big Eats use and a determination and a clear outcome, and then a sense about how you might want to reapply if your offer isn't consistent for whatever reason. So there feels like that the communication isn't as crisp or considered as it should be. And I think the council should encourage that to happen, as much as, to a degree, it's externalized the offer, hasn't it? And we want this to be a success, and we want it to be the right combination of the right offers. But people should clearly understand if their application hasn't been successful and the reasons why it hasn't been successful, I think.
Just to sort of provide further context to members, I mean, a contract has been agreed with Big Eats for the next 12 months. That has, I believe, gone either to full council or certainly a TCM before, because I made sure it was on the agenda. So we have been pretty transparent around that, contractual side of things. However, personally, I would like to see more local traders involved with Big Eats. I know they have tried to do that. It's not always been possible for every kind of food truck or whatever it might be, but that's maybe something we can incorporate, looking ahead. Councillor Foster, you still have a question?
I was going to make the point that I couldn't find the selection criteria on a website. I've had a look through and I've not been able to locate it. So if I can't find it, admittedly, it was a fairly quick search on Google, but if you'd expect that it would be something that would be more prominent if it's something they're very keen to publish. So it would be good to have the links to it. I think if we are, as an organisation, as the council, are having some involvement in this, maybe that's something that could be on our website as well. So to make it easy for people, because the town council Big Eats reference comes up very clearly. There's no other reference that I can find. Just conscious that we're responding to Councillor Patel's motion here rather than the wider subject of Big Eats. The fact that the criteria is published is fine. If we haven't got that available easy, I think if we can do it on our website, the bit around ensuring that all applicants receive formal feedback, I think that's something we should encourage. But given that we've already signed an agreement with them, it's an encouragement rather than a formal request, I think, but it's something we should maybe have a conversation about. And I think, again, it's understanding the subject around committing to supporting local traders by providing our information how they can meet required standards. If the selection criteria is available, what other criteria are there? Is it that you can only have one of a certain type of so if you've got one that meets your criteria, what's the criteria? So I think it's being clear on what it is. I'm just a bit, how much of it then becomes the council's responsibility, and we're talking about it now, or is it the responsibility for us to make sure that Big Eats have a set criteria? And I think that's what Councillor Patel is asking for. So I think that's really it. There's not really a question. It's just a summary of my thoughts on it. Let's not talk about the wider thing about Big Eats. We're talking about the motion here. Would be my thoughts.
No, and that's fine, Councillor Foster. I just want to give members context who perhaps weren't aware of the detail. Having been a bit closer to it. Councillor Patel, and then I'll come to officers and we'll wrap up.
No, it's just briefly, because I think it was mentioned earlier that there have to be a truck which isn't widely known, I don't think, because nobody knows that you'd have to have a truck to be involved. Is that correct, that you need to have a truck? So things like that, if it's published, then yeah, it may ease the blow. But then again, if it's something for the local businesses, I know, it was mentioned that they may expand to other towns, but this was for our town. So perhaps that criteria could be relaxed a little rather than insisting they have trucks. Maybe, yeah, they could have stores, etc., as long as they've got the right hygiene rating to give more people access to trade at the event, rather than trying to go big like the previous people were, because I think they organised it in various towns. Because I think that this is why we brought it in-house, to organise something for our town.
Yeah, you're quite right. I mean, the previous organisers were a much bigger affair. We, as a council, agreed to bring it more partly in-house, partly localised for that exact reason. So I'll pass over to officers, and then I think we need to move on with this one. Okay.
Just really briefly, thanks. Just that, so that's absolutely right in terms about trying to localise it, get it in town, and obviously we're still working at that. I think the other thing to say is that the report that did come to a previous TCM listed a whole host of things to do with Big Eats, and one of those was exactly around potentially over time, if it grew, it would potentially visit other areas too locally. I mean, other towns and places as well, to give it a bit more kind of not just cachet, but a bit more kind of momentum there. So it's just to say there was also that always in the mix. But again, it's certainly officers' intention, as I say, to kind of do more locally that we can for this.
Councillor Patel, I realise it's your motion. Are you? Do you think the how can I say, the direction of the discussion has satisfied your motion, or is there anything else you wanted to sort of? Okay. Do we have to vote on that, don't we? Or? Okay. Well, I think we ought to have a vote on it then. In that case, okay. So I think the only other the other change we want to do is put request instead of ensure. I think was probably the one that seemed pretty reasonable under B. So if we can change that to request as an amendment from the chair, I think if we get so.
Point of order, I think the amendment needs to be agreed by the proposer.
If Councillor Patel, I was asking Councillor Patel, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Are you happy with that change?
I am, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Great, Councillor Albert.
We also need a seconder for the proposal.
Yeah, okay.
Anybody second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Councillor Foster. Okay, great. Trying to do it too quickly. There we go. Speed things up. Okay, so all those in favour of the motion as set out. Okay, so that's 4 in favour. Any abstentions? Okay, so 2 abstentions and none against. Okay, thank you. Item D then, please. UK SPF cultural events update.
So if it's okay, Ian will introduce the subject matter.
Okay.
And then I'll explain some more about Councillor Knight's observations. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Yes, the successful event held, community-led, involved 5 different venues and something like 74 different artists, different locations, 40 gigs delivered across the different locations in the town centre. Saturday, the 8th of March, it occurred. It ran basically for 12 hours from 10:30 in the morning to 10:30 at night. Hugely successful. All the businesses that participated had their busiest days ever. There was no trouble anywhere at all. We calculated that there must have been about 1,500 people went through the different venues in the 12-hour period. We did not directly control this. It was very much done through a community-led management committee, naming themselves Wade Fest. They decided on rates of pay for the musicians. They had control of the organisation. I played a supportive role and attended most of the meetings, but only in a supporting capacity. They would like to run it again next year. We will back off a bit because we took on a certain amount of banking responsibility for it, which became a bit burdensome. So lessons for them next year, get themselves formally constituted, get themselves a committee, get themselves a bank account, and find an external source of funding. I've already pointed them in that direction, and I will support them from behind.
Okay, thank you. And Peter, have you got some
Yes,
sort of
please,
follow-up
if that's okay.
points? Yeah.
Could I just reiterate one point before we move on to Councillor Knight's observations? This comes across as a very successful day. It was facilitated by external funding. That's not available again. So I know from conversations with Ian that he has prompted them, the management committee, to consider other alternatives as to how to identify funding if they wish to pursue this again. It will not be coming back to council. Council are not the default funders here. So I know that they're appreciating your help, but it is down to them to make those resources available. Anyway, I think that these, Councillor Knight has passed on some questions. I think this gives some additional context to the situation if Ian and Karim can then respond to them. So if you don't mind, I'll read out the 6 questions that Councillor Knight has posed and we'll get an answer to each if that's okay. The first question is, the Wadefest Management Committee spent over £10,000 of public money, but the structure and accountability remains opaque. Who serves on the Wadefest Management Committee? Who is the chair? And how were committee members selected? Can officers respond?
Thank you. Yeah, papers giving an overview of the cultural events programme and broad funding were presented to officers at TCM on 24th February, full council on the 9th of July and joint committee on the 11th of July and 15th of October. Further written report was presented to TCM on the 18th of February. As the cultural events were externally designed and delivered by the community, BTC had no input into the programming other than ensuring it remained true to the national guidance. Danny Reals is the chairman, Simon Bales is the vice chairman. Each voluntary venue was represented at the committee. As the committee is entirely voluntary, there is no selection process as per national guidance.
Okay, the second question from Councillor Knight. Did anyone from BTC serve on the Wadefest Management Committee as a member? Thank you.
External governance was the responsibility of the voluntary Wadefest Organising Management Committee in accordance with the national guidelines and which allow for voluntary work and participation. The community development manager attended some meetings in a supportive and national guidance capacity. CBC approved the governance arrangements.
Third question, what role did BTC play in securing the funding?
BTC was alerted to and encouraged by CBC to apply for UK SPF funding and successfully received £29,000 of UK SPF funding, of which £10,200 was allocated to the voluntary Wadefest Organising Management Committee as part of a wider cultural events programme. This was all approved by CBC. The schedule of wider cultural event activities was agreed with TCM and CBC. There are approximately 20 cultural events planned and being delivered over the year.
Okay, how were venues selected? It appears that 5 or more town centre music venues weren't invited to participate and there was no transparent selection process. Why not?
A CBC provided UK SPF confirmation of funding in September 2024, which was halfway into the financial year. In October and November 24, Community Development Manager initiated a series of conversations with local businesses to understand levels of interest, and this included discussion of pub watch held at the Conservative Club. Zero interest was expressed at the time by all attendees. Responsibility was then taken over by the voluntary Wadefest Organising Management Committee, itself in part derived from the BIG group, which is the Biggleswade independent group.
We're almost there, if it's helpful.
Sorry, I've lost it now. The consortium of independent arts and cultural venues in the town.
David,
okay, Councillor Alban, if you've got a question.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit bizarre what's happening. Councillor Knight is asking questions when he's not here. So I'm a bit sort of confused by that, but I'd like to welcome the fact that we, as council, we're trying to enable do what we can to support to make this an annual event. And I'm pleased that there's no money coming from BDC. I recognise the fact that it's been an overhead for PTC to look after the payments because it was channeled through our accounts. And I know that from personal experience because I was one of the authorisers of those transactions, and there were plenty of transactions. But yeah, what I would like to see is the organisers of this festival sort of reach out to other businesses in the town. I know that there were some businesses that felt a little disappointed that they weren't involved. So I'd like to see it evolve into something like the Bulldog Festival has been in the past, that kind of thing. That would be great. And yeah, and it's lovely to see that in the town. But yeah, if we can include more businesses, that would be great.
Thank you, Councillor. But I mean, the town clerk did speak to me about the issue of the questions. I realise it's a bit unorthodox. I accept that, but I felt it was helpful for committee members to know some of the questions that were being posed, sort of outside of the meeting. And I think in terms of transparency, obviously taxpayers' money, etc., and the community at large. So I was happy to have that on. So I don't know whether we want to continue with the question. I think the point's been made, and actually following on from your point, Councillor Albone, about reaching out to more venues, I think is really important. So has anybody else got any other questions on this one? Councillor Foster.
Not a question. I think it's a good event. I think it was a welcome event. I think if we can do whatever we can to support it, we're very conscious, as the clerk has alluded to there, it's not our direct financial responsibility. And I think the fact, Mr. Campbell referenced providing some sort of banking facilities and the fact that we're processing charges, I think that needs to be something that we're not involved in. It needs to be so completely independent, especially it needs to be self-funding. But it was a good event, so it's how can we encourage it and make sure it doesn't sort of just drift. In terms of the recommendations, maybe we can just sort of bolster and word the recommendations in a way that are a proper recommendation. So the recommendation says that BT officers would like to work with Wadefest. I guess the wording needs to be slightly different on the basis that the recommendation is that officers work with rather than officers would like to work with. So if we get the wordings a bit clearer, so it's a recommendation by council rather than actions that the officers are going to sort of take. And it may be a small point, but it's getting the recommendations in the right format. So the second recommendation, rather than it says officers will recommend, it needs to be the committee is recommending that officers do this particular work. So again, the recommendation is that officers you understand the point? Yeah.
Do you have a comment on the last point as well, or is that taken as read? I don't
have a problem with that. I think we can support that, but it is the supporting element, and if that can be involved with some form of grant funding and extending the UK SPF or whatever funding might be, absolutely. But it needs to be that this committee, the Wadefest, are organising themselves with support rather than the other way around.
Okay, that's great. Okay, are you sort of proposing those changes though? Yes. Okay. Is there a second comment? Great. Okay. Any other questions before we go to a vote? Councillor Thomas.
Yeah, I comment. I was around on the day, and lots of people about. It was a good event. There's a toe in the water to prove the concept, if you like. Great idea. Councillor Albone mentioned Bolstock. I've been involved in Bolstock for a while. It started in one pub. A couple of bands in one pub one day by, a couple of people. It just grew and grew and grew. It's now a whole town thing. It's coming back from the COVID stuff even bigger. There's a potential there to do that. They do it they raise money via other events, and they have a committee that works on it all year round. The committee does the event on the weekend. On the Monday morning, they have a rest, and on the Tuesday afternoon, they start again. So it's a continuous process. So it's not a simple thing. So I appreciate that getting somebody else to do it is far easier than doing it ourselves, and we shouldn't be getting involved so much, apart from if we can help them. Also on the day, a couple of people said to me, it'd be nice if the town council could have organised something like this, wouldn't it? And I said, we did. But unfortunately, the notification is in purple and yellow. And this example got here, we can't even read it. But Central Beds it's a Central Bedfordshire, so you wouldn't know that Central Beds is getting involved either. But it does say funded by UK government right at the top, so at least that was clear. But the colours are a bit odd as well, because that's not our colour, town colours or anything. So we could just tidy up. That's the sort of thing that needs to be slightly tidied up, if anything. Just make it clear to the townsfolk that it was pushed by us from the beginning. It started by CBC's funding, and as I stated, and it wasn't the worst thing that could have happened in Biggleswade on that day. It was a great idea, and a lot of people enjoyed it. And I think also if you look on Facebook, etc., there was lots of good comments, and I'm pretty sure the town as a whole helped gain from it, because I saw people going to all the different pubs. There was people milling around. We also had other events on the day. We had the market, and we had another thing happening. But it was a great day, and we need to try and repeat that. And I've seen that for several years at Bolstock. Theirs is in September. Ours was probably the perfect day. You couldn't have picked a better day, because it was horrible before and horrible afterwards. So you need to be careful on your weekend. I know Bolstock's in September. That sometimes gets rained out, but most of the time it's okay. So just choose your weekend. We were very, very lucky with the day. But overall, congratulations for doing it. But we need to consider how it was done, work on it, get better, and try and help the community, whoever's doing it, as much as we can, and support it as much as we can. Okay, but as you say, we can do the fund. We can probably find some funding. I know a few places we can find some funding, so I'm happy to help. And as somebody who's helped organise some of the Bolstock stuff, I could probably give a few pointers if needed, but I think it went well. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Norris. Do you want to say anything, Peter?
Ever so quickly, what I was going to say was, I think that Councillor Knight raises some very credible questions, which the reasons why we tried to answer them in the way that we did is it adds context and understanding. So we will do a response connected to that, and we'll circulate it to all members. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Thomas.
Can the response also be included in the minutes, please?
Yeah, if we could add that, that'd be great. Thank you. Great. Okay, I think officers have got the gist of what members are wanting. I'm conscious we had a recommendation there, and we've had it proposed and seconded. Asia, have you got all the sort of changes that were discussed earlier? Otherwise, we'll try and repeat them. Okay. So all those in favour of the recommendations as described by Councillor Foster. Thank you. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay. 9E. Run the Wade 5K run. Over to you, Mr. Campbell.
Thank you. Yes, the second Run the Wade 5K run is planned for Sunday morning, 25th of May. Last year's anything to go by, it will be packed away by lunchtime, and you would never have known that it was taking place. Course is the same as last year, starting and finishing at the Market Square, going out towards Jordan's Mill and the Green Wheel, back again over Jordan's and returning by the same route back into the town centre. there was minimal traffic disruption last time, and there will only be the same this year, where we basically run a lollipop type arrangement and just hold the traffic briefly on St Andrew Street and Teal Road, in bulk as they go out, but then in drips and drabs as they come back. The lead partner is Jones Fitness, and we are supporting them. We ask members to acknowledge and welcome the initiative of Jones Fitness in bringing the event to the town the second time. Hope to make it an annual event. The assistance BCC have offered to safely enable this event to occur.
Okay, thank you. Any comments, questions? Nope. Okay. We've got a recommendation here. And yeah, do you want us to take a vote on that? Yeah, yeah. Sorry, Councillor Alban, sorry, I didn't see that.
I'd just like to say, but we should support this initiative. I mean, it's I wasn't able to be there last year. I was planning on running it, but I wasn't around, so luckily I got away with it. But yeah, I'd like to formally move the recommendation as said earlier.
Thank you, that's great. Councillor Foster?
I'll obviously second that.
Yeah,
I wasn't planning on running it.
Brilliant.
And I won't be planning on running this at walking maybe. But I think I think we had our reservations last year, but actually it was well organised and it was a good event again. So welcome that, and I think it just goes to show that that it does bring people into the market square as well. But it's good to have these sort of events around the town. So and being organised with support by officers, but not being directly managed by officers is also perhaps the way to go if we can.
No, quite agree. I think it's great to see other members of the community stepping up to sort of take things on and delivering a high quality event. So, okay, we've got that recommendation. All those in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, we've got item 9F, car parking improvements report. So you, Karim.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. So this report essentially covers multiple aspects of the car parks currently operated by the town council. So going kind of through this report, it touches on at least 6 different things here. So first one being officers did recently a sort of disability car parking spaces scoping study across the car parks, and came up with an assessment which is set out here for improvements. The assessment also included a kind of blue badge provision kind of point there. Secondly, the report kind of goes through that any kind of funding throughout this report is specifically predicated upon officers applying for during this financial year and future years for Section 106 funding to make any kind of improvements, including things like wall repairs, pedestrian and disabled path access to certain car parks, line painting spaces, including the disabled bays I've just mentioned, or fixing potholes, things like that. That can be done on a rotational basis, car park by car park, based on highest priority requirements. Thirdly, the car park project has delivered by March 2025, 7 new machines. So the hardware is in place and the software has been installed for those machines, and communications have been issued both on social media and the town council's website in terms of that project and the operation of the machines. Fourthly, again, in terms of the next stages, if you like, for the project, if we look at it that way, in terms of full specification, officers would also be seeking to apply for further Section 106 funding to procure 13 new fully traffic regulation order compliant signs, metal signs for all our car parks, and also explore the potential possibly for introducing, subject to members' views and a future report to come to TCM, the new QR code and pay by app options as well for those machines. And at the moment, officers are in the process of obtaining quotes for that. Fifthly, as well, now that the project has essentially ended in terms of its rollout and the upgrades to the machines, officers have issued a letter to the car parking provider company and are awaiting a formal response back from that company due imminently. And sixth, actually, the report touches on again that regarding the Rose Lane car park flooding issue, which has been ongoing and which officers have put on the town council website exactly what has been happening to date, if you like, an education piece on that, and all the works that officers have been doing in terms of identifying the kind of sources, root causes for that. CBC's leadership has recently responded to the town council, stating that this matter has, in their view, nothing to do with them, and it's for the town council to resolve. So I'll pause there for now.
Thank you, Grim, that's very helpful. Councillor Alban.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd like to thank the officers for this report, and I'd like to move the recommendations as they are. But I do have concerns about the use of QR codes. We've seen lots of reports recently of what's being called quishing scams. Apparently organised criminal gangs are involved in replacing the QR codes, and you get redirected to a different site, and some people can get enticed into regular payments to not the parking operators, and also they can be left with a fine because they haven't paid for parking. So I am concerned about QR codes, and I would like to see more about them before we agree to that. And also I was going to ask about the CBC response. So we're left with dealing with CBC's mess basically, and they're refusing to have anything to do with it. So it is water coming from CBC highways into our car park. So if we blocked them off, we'd still get the water because it would flood over in. I don't think it's acceptable for their response, and I hope we could challenge that.
Town Clerk, please.
Yeah, this is a sensitive matter. So we've tried our level best to provide clear evidence to CBC connected to this. We've met with their officers on site. We've explained this, and there's been acceptance from their officers, their technical officers, of the reasons why this is occurring. You recognize that if CBC were to take responsibility for this, there would be a significant cost. And we also recognize the financial position that CBC find themselves in at the moment. But this shouldn't negate from the fact that we have a problem which we're trying to resolve for the people who live here. We talked about this at our management committee earlier today, and I think there are two things that we can do for the time being, and we should do that. Number one, as much as we have, I won't name names, senior management within CBC coming back with a determination, I think it needs to be escalated. And I think that needs to probably go to members. So I think my inclination is to write to Councillor Zerny and to raise this matter with him. If we're unsuccessful with doing that, the solution, the perfect solution for somewhere which we do not own is significant three-figure sums, which we cannot afford. What we can do as a kind of get-by solution is to regularly flush the system. Yeah, should get some cost expectations of how we should do that. I think in a perfect world, you might do it 4 or 5 times a year. Maybe we should strive towards 2 or 3 times a year. It will reflush, but it will then refill. But I think for now, those two things seem like sensible things to do.
Thank you, Peter. That's great. Councillor Foster, so you hovering?
In terms of the disabled car parking spaces, I think that's absolutely the right thing to do. I note that the fact that the Mill Lane's unviable, and I understand why that is, but no issue with that. The second part of the report that details the payment machines and improvements and maintenance, you're absolutely right. It has taken ages, and clearly there have been issues with the software. There's been issues with signing things off, but I think we also need to acknowledge the fact that we're looking for an element of signage and dealing with signage way after the event. I'm sorry, that's for me is you can't have a situation where we're blaming the software company and the fact for the delay, and then we haven't got signage ready for when the software is ready. I'm sorry, there were delays on traffic orders. I'm sorry, again, that is for us to take some responsibility for. There were delays as a result of that, and some of it clearly is the responsibility of the car parking company, but some of it needs to be in terms of preparation and making sure that we're ready. Now, whether there's a budgeting issue, that may be it, but I think I'll give you an example. We talked about when I think I signed off the software. I was one member that came in December 2023, I think it was, and signed the software off. And one of the things that we talked about was making sure that the signage is right and having a label on the machines. There's plenty of things that we can do. The fact that we're talking about alter the temporary signage, so now it doesn't make it clear to residents what needs to happen. It doesn't make it clear. It doesn't say that you don't have to have a ticket or you do have to have a ticket. It's now there's a blank. It's been blanked out that a ticket is not required. I think I'm right in saying. I'm going to correct me in a second, but we just need to make sure that our own house is in order and make sure that we have got. We've learned that there have been issues, absolutely, but it's not solely in this particular case. The software company. There are other things that haven't gone as well with this particular project. The bit around the car parking and the fact that we need to have lining within the various car parks. Again, no problem with that. I perhaps would have liked to have seen it laid out in a slightly differently in the report, so it's quite clear. It's a paragraph rather than bullet points. On this particular one, I'd like to see what the cost might have been for each individual one, so we can budget that accordingly. So it might be there's certain things. If it's within our £12,000 budget, then that's fine. It doesn't. If not, then we need to make a decision which ones need to be done, and is that then an officer decision, or is that something that comes? And that's perhaps one for the clerk to decide. Is it an operational matter, or is it something that then? So, in which case, if it's an operational matter, does it need to come to the committee? So, the bit around the signage, I'm sorry, that we just need to have dealt with that before. So. I know that sounds like complaining and grumbling, but I'm making the point, we've got some responsibility here. But Councillor Alban has proposed the recommendations. I support those recommendations, so I'm happy to second.
It's about to, excuse me, about to ask if we have a seconder, so you beat me to it, Councillor Foster. Karim, can you answer briefly answer some of those questions?
That's absolutely right. Thanks, Councillor Foster. You're absolutely right on everything you've said. Essentially, we're not shirking responsibility at all in any shape or form. Safe to say that the TRO process was unbelievably long, and it is, technically speaking, kind of outside of outwith of officers' direct control because it's within the CVC area. But I'm not pushing it back on them because we got there in the end. On the signage, absolutely right. We've been tinkering with existing signage and trying to make changes as and when. Completely get your points there, and we've made most recently changes. I think it was last week as well in terms of instructing on the entry point signage, having extra bits put up saying, please enter your vehicle registration details, which is clearly the main task or action that any visitor to our car parks has to do. Take it all on board and we'll be doing what we can.
If I just can't,
Councillor Foster, yeah,
that's my point really.
Yeah.
We've had 2 years and we're now tinkering with it. We should have been ready.
Yep, fair point. Okay, Councillor Skilton, then I'll come back to Peter. Thank you.
Thank you. It's nice to see something that was at the last TCM raised by residents come back so quickly. So thank you for officers for getting that, especially in relation to disabled bays. I just note in the report that you referred to having considered national guidance and regulations. To my mind, some of these numbers don't quite meet the national guidance. I think they're all there or thereabouts. I think the ones with very few bays, getting to the 6% amount of disabled bay could be challenging within space allowed, but I think possibly Rose Lane might need 1 or 2 more disabled bays to meet that national guidance, and I know that is a particular concern to a lot of people that use the town centre. I know someone that uses the disabled bays there, and they're often full now, and I welcome that there are going to be some more, but I think we need to be getting to having all our car parks at national guidance. I will say one positive, that if you look at the total number of parking bays, we are ever so slightly above, but I think just achieving the minimum isn't really what we need to be doing. I think we need to be assessing the needs of our residents and making sure that the provision of our car parks is where it needs to be, and not just defer into national guidance. So that's my point on that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. No, I think that's a fair point, and I think it's probably something we ought to look at, if we can ask officers to take that forward. Peter.
Just a couple of brief observations if I can. Prior to us determining this provider, there were some significant concerns in regard to offer at the time. And unfortunately, we carried on with that provider. The company has been repurchased again. We have written to the chief executive, the new chief exec, and we have stressed to him, A, that the specification agreed by members has not been produced. Number 2, that we think there should be some financial compensation to the council in recognition of the offer. I spoke to one of their local engineers who happened to be here early in the morning the other day, connected to their test product, which came in place a matter of weeks ago before they then replayed the rest of their offer, and tried to understand why they hadn't learned the lessons from that first issue. There was a complete disconnect. And I'm pretty sure that the chief exec will recognise, again, like they tried to sell before, that the company goes through lots of change. There's a massive turnover of staff, which makes it then really difficult to try and deploy. It's a French-based company. So I sympathise with their operational challenges, and I recognise there are some issues that we need to take on board, but there is still a disconnect, and I hope that the relationship can only get better. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, I'm conscious we've had a proposer and seconder for the recommendations. Can we now vote on them, please? So all those in favour of the recommendations are set out. Okay. That's 1, 2, 3, 5 in favour. Yep. Any against? Abstentions? 1 abstention. Thank you. Okay, 9G, advertising and sponsorship report, please. Mr. Campbell again.
Thank you. Yes, we seem to have rumbled on for years without an advertising and sponsorship policy. Recognise that there are opportunities there, and we need to, I think, go about it properly in a way which is going to be open, transparent, and seen to be good practice and for the benefits of the town. So we'll want to look at some appropriate internal government mechanisms for scrutiny and approving new third-party requests, and ensuring that these are consistent with good practice. But there are undoubtedly opportunities for the council to consider accepting offers of appropriate sponsorship and advertising, which could provide a new income stream. So the recommendations are to agree to introduce the proposed new policy as Appendix A, and once introduced, enable officers to source agreements with external organisations. Now you'll notice that there is the advertising and sponsorship policy, and there is also attached the SharePoint version. All the points made, and there weren't many, are accepted. It's probably worth saying that this actually came to council on the TCM 18th of February, went on SharePoint. I think there was few responses to that, and it was to be brought back to you today. So that's where we are.
Thank you very much. In any, excuse me, any questions? Councillor Albo and then Councillor Skilton. Please, thank you.
Yeah, I'm not particularly keen on advertising myself, but I understand the reasoning for it. I wanted to just, this isn't a proposed change because I don't think there is a change needed, but on page 33 at the bottom of the page, under point F, so it says the content is not permitted for advertising, includes the following, but is not limited to. We've got promotion or availability of tobacco products, which is going to be excluded, but there's no need for a mention, but I would hope that things like vaping is included, vaping products is included as well. But it doesn't need that in because that's not the limit of the list. So I just wanted to point that out, really.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Skilton, please.
Oh, yeah, thanks. So just from the advertising point of view, I think it would be good to have a list available of where our advertising sites are. Other council policies have a prescribed list of railings and buildings and places where they can put various kinds of signs, and that I think that's very helpful to anyone looking to advertise and might improve our offer if we are looking to sell advertising space. I do have some sort of, there's a, number 5D in advertising, that's page 33, care should be taken to avoid causing offence on the grounds of race, age, religion, sex, sexual orientation or disability. That's 7 of the protected characteristics under the Equalities Act. And there are more to my knowledge, and I wrote them down on a different notepad and didn't bring it, and I can't remember. But there are, I think there are 13 now recognised protected characteristics by some local, that are definitely recognised by some local authorities. So I think we need to give consideration to all of those. So I think that needs to be changed to care should be taken to avoid causing offence or discrimination on protected characteristics in the Equalities Act, whatever year that is.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Councillor Foster.
Good point, Councillor Skilton, quite right. But I think there is a benefit for having policy. There's definitely a benefit of having the sponsorship policy. It allows us to bring some income in and some elements as well. So I welcome the fact that we've got something in place here. We'll review it over. I mean, I think the review is April 2028 once we've agreed it. If there are any issues as we're going along that we think actually it isn't working, I guess it could come back to TCM at any point in the future anyway. So from my point of view, it's good to have it in place, so I move the recommendation as laid out.
Thanks, Councillor Foster. Have we got a seconder for that? Councillor Thomas, great. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so notwithstanding, I think Councillor Skilton's points around the Equalities Act, and I think Councillor Albone's sort of point around vaping, but accepting the fact it wasn't exclusive. Are we all, can we take a vote then, please, on the 2 recommendations? All those, well, I'll do them individually. So the first one, agree to introduce the new policy and Appendix A. All those in favour? That's 4, okay. And then all those against? Abstentions? Okay, so 2. And then the second point, once introduced, enable officers to source agreements with external organisations. All those in favour? 4 again. Against? Abstentions? 2. Thank you very much. Can I just check, Age, there's no one online for the public opening session at 11? No? Okay, great, thank you. Okay, number 12, it's proposed that we go into exempt session. Can I take a vote on that, please, that we move to exempt session? Okay, it's unanimous, thank you very much.